ch. 26. Guys, please drop some good reviews after reading, thank you. Underscore 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 underscore. Chikashi then proceeded to tell him about the rulers and monarchs and also about their never-ending war. Kenji just quietly listened to him. Sometimes shock will appear on his face while also asking him questions about things he didn't understand. And that's when the rulers finally defeat the monarchs, while the monarchs went into hiding. After Chikashi was done, silence ensued in the room. Who are the monarchs? Kenji broke the silence by asking a question that has been bugging him off. Chikashi stares at him for a few seconds before sighing. I don't know any monarchs, but I know 3 monarchs that the rulers warned me about. Who are they? When Kenji heard him, he pushed his body forward with interest in his eyes. The first one is the Dragon Monarch, also known as Monarch of Destruction, then there is also the Shadow Monarch and finally, the most mysterious of all monarchs is the Star Monarch. Chikashi stopped when he saw that mentioning the Star Monarch piqued his attention. He then continued, as far as everybody knows, he was a neutral monarch, he never joined the war nor participated in battles. Most thought that he was the weakest monarch so he doesn't participate, so the Dragon Monarch came to greet him. After the Dragon Monarch came back, everybody was shocked when he suddenly announces the Star Monarch is his equal. After he finished, Kenji fell into deep thinking. Whenever the Star Monarch was being mentioned, he felt something deep inside him reacting to it. It's like he was very familiar with this monarch, even though he knew himself that he hasn't met this monarch yet, but deep inside him, he already knew who reincarnated him here. As for why does he know? Call it his guts, and besides, he's getting a reaction just by hearing him. Chikashi just looked at Kenji contemplating something before clearing his throat. Ihim, it's midnight already, we should get some sleep. After saying that, he quietly left the living room, leaving Kenji in his own thoughts. After thinking for a few minutes, he finally concluded that he must meet this monarch to find the answers to his questions. Soon enough, he also plopped down to his bed but not before messaging Kanae and his mom about what happened and saying his goodnight. Next day. Inside a meeting hall, the U.S. president was having his speech about the current matters and especially the humanity's greatest calamity and its horrors. Thankfully, Kenji was there in time to defeat the monstrous dragon, and that's how the U.S. president suggested creating a higher rank called National Rank Hunter. Kenji was the first ever National Rank Hunter, and soon, some countries suggested their hunters be promoted to National Rank. And so only 5 National Hunters candidates were chosen to participate in a test to determine whether they were worthy of the rank. After the meeting, Kenji was met by Thomas again, but this time, Lu Zigang, one of the National Rank candidates, joins them. I didn't expect I'd be chosen as a candidate. Lu Zigang, Thomas Andre, and Kenji were chatting with each other. Well, it is expected, after all, you're the former strongest hunter of Asia. Kenji followed up and chatted. Well, yeah. Soon half an hour passed and it was time for everyone to go home. After saying his goodbyes to his new friends, Kenji, instead of flying again, he boarded a private plane along with his father, of course, since he was the one who defeated Kamish, the U.S. president gave Kenji, Kamish's fangs and the mysterious stone that resides inside his body. This has been one eventful trip, Kenji mused to himself and chuckled slightly before staring outside the window. However, he suddenly thought about what Thomas said earlier while they were having a chat. Flashback. So, Kenji, are you planning on having your own guild? If you do create a guild, I'm sure countless hunters will rush up to you just to join. Hearing Thomas's words, Kenji falls into deep thinking, does he still need a guild? When he alone is enough to obliterate his enemies. End of flashback. While thinking about it, he didn't notice that the plane has finally arrived back in Japan. Son, we're here. His father, Chikashi, was the one who woke him up from his thoughts. Soon they both went down the plane and once outside, they both could see countless reporters asking him questions here and there. It seems like the travel of news is very fast. Kenji only answered a few questions while ignoring the nonsense questions like, what brand of shampoo do you use? Or something else like, do you have a huge dick? The last one seems like a question from a MILF reporter. Soon he also left the airport and finally arrived at his home. He didn't inform Kanae of his return since he wanted to surprise her. Once he went inside, he saw that the first floor was empty and went upstairs to his room and saw what was inside. Inside his room was a sleeping Kanae. But what confuses him was a rap on her shoulder. At first, Kenji was mad thinking that Kanae was hurt, but he suddenly noticed a black marking on her shoulder. So he went inside the room and slowly peeled the wrapper and saw a tattoo on her shoulder. When he saw the tattoos, he saw that it looks like a burning sun or something. There is also a tattoo that catches his attention. On the back of her shoulder, Kenji Heart and Arrow Kanae was marked on her. Kenji felt warm inside, and because of this, Kanae woke up and saw Kenji warmly smiling at her. At first, she was confused about what was Kenji doing here. Then she realized that she has recently gotten a tattoo from Hana's friend. Wait. Don't look at it. It was supposed to be a surprise gift for you. Kanae immediately covered her shoulder and pouted at Kenji. Kenji just raised his eyebrows and said, "Why did you get a tattoo?" Seeing his raised eyebrows and a question, Kanae immediately felt a bad feeling inside her. So she asks with a bit of fear and sadness, "Why you didn't like it?" By saying this, tears were already forming in her eyes and were attempting to fall out. Kenji, who saw this, felt bad for her. He was just concerned for her since he saw it himself back in his previous world. There's this guy who has full body tattoos and almost all people were avoiding him. Although there are pros and cons to having a tattoo, it might lead to some people looking down at her. There is also some risk like infections or something like that, but he is not against her tattoo, he was just worried for her. Seeing that Kenji was silent for a few minutes, Kanae was already regretting having a tattoo. She almost felt like slapping herself for not asking her boyfriend's permission first. When she was about to apologize and find a way to remove the tattoo, she suddenly heard Kenji's warm words, "It's beautiful." She raised her head and saw Kenji looking at her lovingly, and she suddenly tears up and hugged him. However, ow. 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 Because of a sudden hug, her tattoos rubbed with Kenji's clothes, leading to her pain. Kenji was also worried, so instead of hugging her, he just kissed her forehead and hugged her head to his muscular chest. That day, they both felt closer than ever. Underscore 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 underscore. Please visit my Patreon to read 5 advanced chapters, and if you want to support me. www.patreon.com SlimeSage. Don't forget to change it to a 500 Power Stones 1 bonus chapter. 1000 Power Stones 2 bonus chapters. 13 comments 0 vote. Ch. 27. Morning has come. Kenji, who was sleeping with Kanae in his arms, slowly opens his eyes, and what greeted him was the sunlight escaping from the curtains. Slowly, he got out of bed and went to the bathroom to brush his teeth. Then he went and took a bath before walking downstairs to cook breakfast for him and Kanae. Soon, he finished cooking breakfast, which consists of tamago cake gohan, miso soup, and ohitashi. I'm clueless about Japanese breakfast, so I just searched on Google. Meanwhile, Kanae was already awake and was just brushing her teeth after taking a bath. Once she went downstairs, she saw that Kenji was almost done preparing the dishes on the table. Kenji also saw her. "Good morning, sleepyhead." He smiled and continued, "Breakfast is ready, come sit." Kanae smiled, feeling a bit warm inside her heart. Soon she also sat down and they both ate their breakfast in bliss. Once they finished eating, they both cuddled on the couch while Kenji started a conversation. "I've been thinking. I think I should start my own guild, what do you think?" Kenji said. Kanae brought her slender fingers up to her chin and fell into thinking. Kenji just kept quiet and waited for Kanae's response. A few seconds later, Kanae finally spoke. "I think you should, but I'll join, is that okay with you?" Kenji immediately replied when he heard her. "Of course, I was already planning on inviting you." Kenji nodded and agreed. Kanae was also happy, but then she asked, "So, what'll be the name of our guild?" Kenji then realized that he hadn't thought of the guild name yet. Justice League. Kenji asked her, after all, he is Superman, then the name should be Justice League, right? Kanae just stared at him while raising her eyebrows. "Really? That's a lame name." Kenji sighed and fell into thinking. A few seconds later, he clapped his hands and said, "Ha! Krypton Guild." Kanae this time looked at him in contempt. "What's with you and your lame naming sense?" They both quieted and only the moving hands of the clock can be heard throughout the living room. "How about?" Once Kanae started speaking, Kenji stopped himself in his thoughts and waited for Kanae to finish. "Asahi Guild." Kanae excitedly said and stared at him. Kenji was just happy at seeing her smile and unconsciously agreed. "Sure. That's a cool name." Kenji nodded and felt the name was just right. UMU. UMU. Kanae also nodded and felt happy that her boyfriend agreed with her. So, when are you gonna register our guild? Kanae asked him. I think I'll do it tomorrow. Today, I'll spend my time with you. Then he went and hugged her tightly while sniffing her delicate neck. Kanae just giggled and also hugged him tightly. If you're just gonna hate me just because of this, then just go and fuck yourself. Soon, an hour has passed with just the both of them cuddling with each other on the couch. They then decided to watch some movies and turned on the power of the television, and they were greeted by the news about a dungeon appearing in Kyoto. Since the dungeon was being handled by some hunters, Kenji changed the channel and finally found a good movie. With just that, they watched some movies for a whole day. Though there is one thing that Kenji realized, is that the movies in this world are quite good, but the masterpieces back from his world are missing. Kenji thought of plagiarizing some masterpieces from his world to this world. But Kenji decided to set this matter aside for now and focus on his current life. Maybe if he has time he'll publish some movies here like Harry Potter or something. Once they finished a movie, Kenji asked something that put a smile on Kanae's face. Let's have a date, Kenji uttered, which Kanae smiled and agreed with him. When? Kanae asked since she was getting excited. Kenji just chuckled at her excitement and said to her, Saturday, be ready. Once he said that, Kenji looked at Kanae and winked at her. Kanae giggled and finally, both of them got tired of watching movies and went to bed. Soon, a day passed and Kenji was already wearing a formal suit while Kanae was fixing his tie. Although he could do it, having her fix his tie made it feel like they are husband and wife. Once that is done, Kenji pecked her on her lips and said his farewell to her, and left. Kenji then hopped on his black Draco GTE car and drove off the mansion. On his way to the gate, he could see some patrolling guards saluting at him when they saw his car. Back to Kanae, once she saw that Kenji was already gone, she decided to go to the gym and spend her time training or raid some dungeons if someone called. Sometimes, she felt a bit useless due to Kenji's power. Just this month, they both sparred, and although she could show off some moves, she could see and feel that Kenji was holding back. She didn't know whether she should be happy that her boyfriend is such a force to be reckoned with, or should she be sad because she can't keep up with him in their dungeon raids. So this time, she decided to up her training and raid some more dungeons to keep up with her lover. With this goal set on her mind, she unhurriedly walked to the gym to train her ass off. Meanwhile, Kenji has finally arrived at the Japan Hunters Association. Currently, he's having a chat with Bon, talking about the registering of his guild. So, aside from yourself, have you decided on a member? I can recommend some lone hunters to you. Bon chatted with Kenji. He was excited that Kenji was finally creating his own guild instead of soloing A-ranked dungeons, sometimes with his girlfriend. Kenji nodded and told him, my girlfriend will be the first member. As for the rest, I think I'll think about it in a few days. After that, it is time to proceed to the registration of the guild under the name of Asahi Guild, meaning rising sun or morning sun. Kenji felt that this name that Kanae suggested is really suitable for his guild since his source of power is the sun. Underscore 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 underscore. Finally, Kenji has created his own guild. I think he'll do some very small time skips until we arrived at the canon. Who knows, maybe recruit Sung Jin-woo into his guild. Please visit my Patreon to read 5 advanced chapters, and if you want to support me. www.patreon.com SlimeSage. Don't forget to change it to A. 500 Power Stones 1 bonus chapter. 1000 Power Stones 2 bonus chapters. 17 comments 0 vote. Ch. 28. If this fanfic reached at least 50 in the power rankings this week, then I'll post a bonus chapter. Underscore 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 underscore. After registering his guild, it was time to go home. After getting inside his car, the car blared in the engine and finally drove off. It took 15 minutes to arrive back home, due to traffic. Finally, he drove his car to the garage and went inside his house, and found that no one is in the living room. Kenji used his X-ray vision and looked around the house and finally found Kanae, in the gym, practicing katas with her twin katanas. From Kenji's observations since Kanae awakened, her speed is her major strength. Honestly, in the manhwa, Kanae only showed her speed, so the rest of her strength is unknown. So that's why I'll make some things up to make her qualify as an S rank. Once seeing her in the gym, Kenji didn't hesitate and also went to the gym. And there, he found her sweating heavily all over her body, making her abs glisten in sweat, which Kenji gulped. Currently, she is only wearing a sports bra, showcasing her abs, and her tattoo. Kanae, who was breathing heavily, noticed that someone was at the entrance of the gym, so she didn't hesitate and threw her katana toward it. Kenji obviously wasn't shocked by this. During their sparring lessons, he instructed her to always be alert and show no mercy to her opponents. Back to Kenji. Kenji easily caught the tip of her katana in the middle of her fingers. That's good, always be alert. He didn't even manage to finish his sentence when Kanae was already in front of him with her katana ready to cut him down. Kenji saw that she was grinning while staring at him. Kenji smirked at seeing her like this again. Whenever they fight, Kanae always felt pleasure in fighting Kenji since his body is immune to her physical attacks, so she could go all out whenever she wants. Kenji knew this side of her, and instead of hating it, he even loves her for it. No, not because he is a masochist or something, he doesn't know what it is called, but it goes something like he loves her more because she is showing her true nature, which is a battle-thirsty woman. Kenji was dodging all her attempts. Although he could tank it, he felt that it was no fun in it. After all, it's much more fun moving your body than just standing still. Why won't you hit? Kanae was almost out of breath, due to her training earlier and then fighting without resting, so it's pretty obvious she'll get exhausted. Kenji just chuckled at her attempt and finally decided to fight back. He first dodged one of her attacks and used his knee to strike her abdomen. Of course, he's holding back. He doesn't want to turn his girlfriend into meat paste, doesn't he? Kanae was shocked at Kenji's counterattack and didn't manage to react fast enough to dodge his knee. Bam! Once his knee hit her abdomen, Kanae was immediately out of breath and slowly kneeled on the ground while holding her stomach in pain and pleasure. Cough, cough. You really don't hold back, do you? Kanae said with staggering breath. Kenji chuckled, oh darling. You don't know how much I hold back. Kenji shook his head and said. What he said is true. He hasn't found an opponent who could take his punches without holding back. Now, he's waiting for the rulers and monarchs to arrive in this world. He's itching for a satisfying fight. Who knows, maybe they could scratch the itch that he's feeling these years. Kanae, who just got her ass whooped, was resting on a bench while drinking an energy drink. So, how was it? When Kanae noticed that Kenji was walking toward her, she then asked him with expectations. Of course, Kenji wouldn't disappoint. Amazing, in just a month, you've improved your speed and skills in katana. Kenji nodded sagely while speaking. Kanae felt happy. She too also felt that she improved leaps and bounds because she managed to slice Kenji's suit with her katana. This is the first time she did that, so she's really happy. Although it is not enough to catch up to him, at least it is enough to at least stand by his side. Kenji knew what she was thinking in her goal of catching up to him, but he just ignored it, not because he is looking down at her but because he knew that she needed it to improve herself more. And besides, if he told her to stop her goal to reach him and tell her that even if she's weak, she could stand by his side, it might hurt her pride as a woman and girlfriend. He knew how complex a woman's mind is. So he didn't bother her goals. Whether she could catch up to him or not, for him as long she is by his side, that's enough for him. While Kenji was musing to himself, Kanae was looking at her calloused hand and then stared at Kenji's hand and saw no callus, his hand is smooth like butter. When Kanae saw this, she felt like laughing. Aren't women supposed to have smoother hands than men, but why does it feel like she is the man here? If Kenji knew what she was thinking, he might use his laser vision to burn his hand just for her. Once Kanae got enough rest, she then looked at Kenji and smiled. Round 2. She asked eagerly. Kenji smirked at her and said, you're on. And that's just like that, they sparred with each other for the whole night, until Kanae can't raise her arms anymore. While Kanae was sleeping on the bed, Kenji was on the balcony, thinking about his loved one back in his world. He's wondering if Elijah has finally reached his dream to become an astronaut. Then, there is also his daughter, Ellie. He wonders what she's up to now. Kenji hopes that she's living a good life along with her husband. Soon, Kenji noticed that it was already past midnight, so he decided to set his thoughts aside for now and go to sleep. He went back to his room and quietly sneaks into the bed, trying to make sure that Kanae won't wake up. Once, he lay on the bed, he went and hugged Kanae and buried her face in his chest. Meanwhile, Kanae, as if sensing that her boyfriend was by her side, smiled and snuggled in more to his chest. Underscore 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 underscore. Please visit my Patreon to read 5 advanced chapters and if you want to support me. www.patreon.com SlimeSage. Don't forget to change it to a 500 Power Stones 1 bonus chapter. 1000 Power Stones 2 bonus chapters. 10 comments 0 vote. Announcement. Guys, there will be no chapters since I got sick nauseated face, so I'll take a day off. Hopefully, I'll get better so I could publish on Monday. 15 comments 0 vote. CH. 29. Hey guys, I just recovered, so here's a chapter for y'all. Underscore 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 underscore. This might be my worst chapter since I have no idea about dating stuff. Underscore 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 underscore. In the morning, a piece of news caused a sensation around Japan. It is about Kenji's guild registration. Many hunters were lining up to join his guild, even some big shots like S-rank hunter Goto Ryuji who hasn't created his guild yet, so he could be called a solo hunter. While Kenji was causing sensations around the world, our dear protagonist was oblivious to what was happening and currently preparing himself for their date. Although this is not their first date, Kenji will make sure that this date will be the best date ever for them. As for their first date, well, it could be called a failure since, first of all, it was that time when Kenji's parents doesn't know about them being a couple so they had to hide their identities to not get caught by some paparazzi. And lastly, a dungeon outbreak occurs just near the restaurant where they were dining in, so the date was cancelled and Kenji have to clear the dungeon. Kenji hopes that this time, no dungeon breaks occur since he had already planned this date overnight. Since ladies like to shop first, then the first place that they will visit is a shopping mall. Whatever Kanae wants, Kenji will buy it, even if it is a car or a house. After their shopping spree, they'll have dinner at I's Tsuyoshi in Tokyo, Minato City. Ga. I don't know any of this, I'm not experienced in this field so I'll just blabber some things that I watched in some movies or animes. Once that's done, they'll visit a theme park to rest and watch the scenery. Then, they'll visit an aquarium to watch some fish or dolphins or whatever. And finally, once the date is done, it is finally time for a kiss. Kenji then focused on fixing his suit which consists of a full black long sleeve that hugs his muscular body and black tight jeans and black sneakers. Looking at the mirror, Kenji smiles to himself and thanked whoever reincarnated him for giving him such good looks. Once he was done, he went out of his room, and went downstairs and finally saw Kanae, who was very beautiful at the moment. She was currently wearing a red dress on her top while revealing her shoulders and at the same time showing her tattoos and a black skirt with 3 pairs of white buttons on the front. Kenji smiles at her and she smiles back, "You're beautiful," Kenji said with a warm smile while Kanae blushed at his remarks and complimented him back, "You're also handsome in that suit, Ken-chan." Kenji felt happy while at the same time, he was afraid that this date might not go as exactly as he planned. So that's why he decided to add a bit of a surprise for her at the end of their date. Kenji then held Kanae's hand who smiled at him and they both went to the garage. Inside, they both went to his black Draco GTE car, and as a gentleman, he opens the door for her which makes her smile, and went inside. Once he closed the door, he also went inside the car and slowly drove off. First things first, he drove to a shopping mall. He first parked the car and they both went inside, side by side with their hands holding each other. The first place that they went to was not surprisingly a clothing store, where Kanae tried different kinds of outfits which Kenji immediately bought since, for him, almost every clothes in the store looks good on her. Although Kanae tried refusing at first but seeing that Kenji keeps on insisting, she finally sighed and surrendered at the end. The manager even gave them an exclusive card where they can buy everything in the store at 40% off, the next time they visit. After that, they went to an accessories store where Kanae bought him a brand new watch. Although he has many expensive watches at home, there is nothing more expensive when it is given by the one you love. So Kenji decided to wear this watch every day than the expensive watches he has at home. Soon, after a few hours of shopping, Kenji noticed that Kanae was getting hungry, so they went to a restaurant called I's Tsuyoshi in Tokyo. It was then that Kenji noticed another side of Kanae, a gluttonous one. Kenji stared at the stack of plates on the table. Meanwhile, Kanae just kept eating and eating until finally, Kenji cannot take it anymore and asked, "Kanae, am I not feeding you enough?" Kanae stopped eating and stared at him in confusion while her mouth is full, then she shook her head and went back to eating. Slurp. In the end, Kanae slurped her noodles and finally leaned on her chair in pleasure while patting her stomach. Kenji stared at Kanae's stomach and saw no bulge in it, making him look at her in wonder, wondering where did all the food she ate go. Kanae then noticed that Kenji was staring at her stomach and blushed in shyness. Don't stare at my tummy like that. She used her hands to hide her abdomen and looked away in a blush. Kenji just scratched the back of his head and said, "Ah. Sorry about that, I just thought that you look cute when you eat." Hearing what Kenji said, Kanae mentally noted to herself to always eat in front of Kenji. After eating, Kenji then proceeded to go to a park where they could see some kids playing while their parents sitting on some benches. Although there is one little problem. Look. It's Superman. A kid pointed out to him, and soon he was discovered by everyone in the park, who immediately rushed to him either for a picture or an autograph. When Kanae and Kenji saw this, they tightened their grip on each other's hands and run away from the park. They didn't even manage to enjoy the scenery. Once they arrived in an alley, Kenji and Kanae smiled at each other at how fun this date is becoming. I should have put on some disguise, Kenji muttered to himself. The reason why he didn't disguise himself was to announce to the world that he's already taken and dating Kanae. Kenji can already imagine his fan club going crazy on the internet. Underscore 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 underscore. Gimme some stanez. Please visit my Patreon to read 5 advanced chapters, and if you want to support me. www.patreon.com SlimeSage. 500 Power Stones 1 bonus chapter. 1000 Power Stones 2 bonus chapters. 9 comments 0 vote. Ch. 30. 200 stones this week, and I'll post an extra chapter. Underscore 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 underscore. Hey, you. Give me all our wallets. Because they both were in a dark alley, it's pretty obvious that they'll be mugged since crimes were sometimes committed in a dark alley. Kenji also knows this. After all, he is a hero. Almost every criminal he sent to jail or killed always commits their crimes in a dark alley. Hey. Are you deaf? I said give me all our wall. The grumpy man didn't even manage to finish his sentence when suddenly, Kenji disappeared and appeared in front of him with both of his hands holding his and with Kenji's grip. Crack. Ga hhhhh. The man yelled with his everything due to the extreme pain he was feeling right now. Both of his hands were broken with bones sticking out of his wrist and his nails were bleeding profusely. It is not wrong to say that the man will never be able to masturbate again. Although he is a bit harsh, Kenji knew that this could be called a lesson for criminals. Without pain, people won't change. Pain can be a fuel for people to change. After crying in pain for a few seconds, the man slowly raised his head while snot and tears were dripping out of his face. Kenji coldly looked at him back and said, "If I still see you committing crimes again, I promised you that you'll feel something more painful than that." He then turns around and held Kanae's hand before walking away from the dark alley, leaving the man crying on his knees while cursing himself for encountering a monster, and finally deciding to change himself for the better good. Back to Kenji, he was quietly walking with Kanae while waiting for Kanae's reaction to what he did earlier. Kenji saw Kanae opens her mouth and Kenji then braced himself. You were so cool back there. Kanae giggles when she saw Kenji sighing in relief after hearing what she said. Do I? Kenji asks in confirmation. Kanae nodded immediately. She isn't lying when she said that. He looked cool earlier, especially that cold look he casts. When she saw his cold face, it gives her a vision of Kenji standing atop countless corpses with his glowing red eyes menacingly and coldly staring down upon the world. Not gonna lie, it makes her wet. Nay. Kanae. Kanae seems to wake up from her dreams and saw Kenji looking at her worriedly. Are you okay? You're not responding for almost a minute. What were you thinking? Kenji asks her in a worried tone. Kanae felt warm at seeing Kenji's worried face and shook her head. Nothing, I was just thinking about our future. Although Kenji was still worried, he was also a bit interested in what will their future be. Perhaps an ordinary family will be fine, but thinking about the rulers and monarchs forced him to abandon these thoughts. Even though he knew that having an ordinary family is almost impossible, it doesn't hurt to try, right? We're here, Kenji said to Kanae while looking at the building in front of them. Kanae followed where he is looking and nodded at the sight of a blue-colored huge building. Let's go inside. Soon, Kenji and Kanae were finally inside, touring around while watching some aquatic animals swimming in the water. Whoa! Kanae marveled at the sight of dolphins doing a backflip in the water. Then there were also some goldfish, crabs, and many more that makes her smile. Meanwhile, Kenji was staring at Kanae smiling instead of the fish. For him, this image is more beautiful than any other. Such a perfect smile perfectly fits her beauty. Kanae caught Kenji looking at her and confusedly asks, "Is there something on my face?" She touched her face and tries to feel it if there was something wrong. Kenji shakes his head and said, "Nothing, just a beautiful smile." Kanae cringed at his pickup line but still gave her a pleasant feeling in her heart. "Geez, you're so cringy. How about we take a look inside there?" Kanae tries to hide her blush by diverting the topic and pointing at a random door in excitement. But who is Kenji? His eyes are sharper than an eagle, so he caught her blush, but since it might make her embarrassed, he just decided to ignore it and looked at where she pointed to. Kanae, that's a restroom." Kenji scratched his cheek and said to her. This time, Kanae didn't manage to hide her blush anymore and just hid her face on Kenji's arm, who chuckled at seeing her cute reaction. Soon, Kanae recovered from her embarrassment and they both enjoyed their date as usual. To be honest, this is the first time they both enjoyed a date. After all, since they've become a couple they only had 2 dates. The first one, they didn't enjoy since both of them were too nervous. And the second one, although they're not nervous anymore, a dungeon outbreak ruined their date. So this is their 3rd date and Kenji swore that he'll make this date the perfect one. Although it was almost ruined by the mugger earlier, Kenji could still fix this. Soon, they both toured the whole aquarium, and they grew bored of the place, so it was time to end the date. Although both of them were sad that their date will finally end, they could still have more dates in the future. It was already dark when they went outside and found their car in the parking lot. Kenji smirks when he noticed that there were a lot of faded fingerprints on the car. He was already used to this since these fingerprints mean that some people decided to have a picture with his car. This was common for those who own supercars. Kenji went to the passenger side and opens the door for Kanae like a gentleman. Kanae smiles and kissed him on the cheek before sitting inside the car. Kenji grins in happiness and closed the door before rushing to the driver's seat and sitting inside. The car's engine roared and drove away from the lot. Because it was already night, it just took him a few minutes before reaching their home. Kenji repeats what he did earlier and opens the door for Kanae to go out. Once she was out, she turns around and smiled at Kenji and said, "I just wanted to thank you for this date. I know how you went beyond for our date tonight and I wanted to say that this is the best date I've ever had. Thank you." After saying that, Kanae went forward and placed her lips to his and everything quieted down, leaving only their breathing sounds. 10 seconds later, their lips separated leaving a bridge of their saliva, before looking at each other with loving eyes. Although the kiss was just 10 seconds, to him, that kiss felt like years. This may not be their first kiss, since they have kissed back then, but they're not gonna lie that this was the best kiss they had in their entire life. Underscore 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 underscore. Send a gif of cringe here because the chapter is cringe. Please visit my Patreon to read 5 advanced chapters and if you want to support me. www.patreon.com/SlimeSage. 250 Power Stones 1 bonus chapter. 500 Power Stones 2 bonus chapters. 8 comments 0 vote. Ch. 31. Time flies like a butterfly and half a year has passed. Kenji and Kanae were much closer than ever since their date. That's not the only thing that has happened during the year. Dungeon outbreaks have been increasing in rates as time passes. No one could form an explanation for this happening, though theories and rumors were going around about the cause, but all of those are only theories. Meanwhile, only the Akano family knew who was causing this increase in dungeon outbreaks. The rulers. They don't know the reason for it, but the husband and wife knew that they must be doing this for the greater good of this world. While Kenji didn't slack off, even though he was already strong enough to obliterate buildings with just a mere flick of his finger, that doesn't mean he's invincible. He knows that the monarchs and rulers were probably much stronger than him. And he needed more strength, so he started training in many kinds of martial arts. After all, a Superman who is a master in martial arts is much more deadly. Although in the comics, Superman was trained in close combat by Batman, Superman didn't focus much on this and just goes around punching his enemies with his fist. He also exposes himself in the sun whenever he had time. Meanwhile, Kanae wasn't also slacking off. With her goals in her mind that fuels her, she started learning different kinds of martial arts. Her goal this time is to master all martial arts that exist in this world. Although martial arts aren't that helpful in dungeon raiding, imagine an S-rank hunter who has mastered martial arts, that will definitely make the hunter much more stronger compared to his fellow S-rank hunters. Enough with the martial arts talk. Kenji is currently on his way to clear another A-rank dungeon when suddenly, his phone rings. Looking at the name of the caller, he answered, Bon. This is Kenji speaking. Ah. Kenji, how are you? You know, it's been 3 months since we last saw each other. However, Kenji immediately cuts him off. Stop wasting my time and get to the point. Kenji annoyingly said. Kenji heard a sigh from the phone before Bon speaks. Well, I was just wondering if you're free right now since an S-ranked gate has opened in one of the islands under Korea. I think it was Jeju Island or something like that. Kenji raises his eyebrows and asks, why me? Why not to other S-rank? And besides, why the hell would we meddle in Korea's matters? Kenji rapidly asks questions one after another. Wait. Look, the chairman of the Korean Hunters Association has personally asked for you since the gate isn't something that Korean hunters could handle. They'd already sent their best hunters and no one came back. It was suspected that they were all killed. His last sentence seems to make Kenji stop in his tracks and asks in interest, you mean all of them? They were just gone like poof. Gone. Yes. Poof. Gone. Just like that. So, will you come? Kenji seems to think for a little bit before looking at his wristwatch and saying, I'll see what I can do. Before he hangs up. He decided to finish this raid as soon as possible and hopefully could get there in time. Having decided, Kenji immediately went out of his car and flew towards the dungeon that he was supposed to clear. Once he was there, he didn't even greet the reporters or the personnel and just went inside the red gate. Kenji-sama. His assistant seems to want to say something to him but it was already too late and Kenji was already inside. Inside the red gate, Kenji found that he was in a dense jungle, surrounded by trees, grasses, and plants. Kenji seems to react normally since it is a commonplace when it comes to a red gate. But it was different for E to B ranked gates since when you enter them, you'll always end up inside a cave. Sometimes it will be a complex cave full of mazes which depends on the rank of the gate. Kenji didn't bother waiting for the monsters to show up and instead, used his X-ray vision to find all his enemies and he found them separated in groups of 3. From his observations, they looked like some snakes, since they looked like they were crawling on the ground. Kenji decided to meet them first and rushed towards the nearest group. And it seems like he was right when he saw a couple of anacondas hissing towards him when they saw him. Hello there. The anacondas hissed more intensely and immediately charged at Kenji. Geez, don't be such hot-headed snakes. It's bad for your health. Kenji shook his head and casually avoided one of the anacondas. Then he grabbed the next one who tried to attack him and he used it as a weapon, like a whip. Boom. If someone were to see this, they will be shocked to see a man holding a thick 5-meter-long anaconda and waving it towards its brethren like a toy. Soon, the anacondas were repelled and were now cautious of him. Meanwhile, the anaconda Kenji was holding was already dead due to constant smashing. What a poor snake. Seeing that the snake he was holding was already dead, he threw it behind him like throwing the trash. The anacondas hissed more when they saw one of them being thrown away like disposable trash. What Kenji didn't know was a battalion of huge anacondas was already on their way to him. Of course, it was because Kenji was too focused on playing with the snakes that he didn't notice, and because he was producing loud sounds when playing with the snakes that he unknowingly attracted others' attention. It was then that Kenji heard someone hissing everywhere and when he looked around, he saw countless anacondas menacingly staring at him like he is their prey. But will Kenji let himself be bullied by them? No. Hiss, Kenji also hissed like he was mocking them. The anacondas hissed at him as if they were talking to him. Huh. Oh, sorry I was mocking you guys earlier, I'm not actually talking to you all. That seemed to trigger them and they all sprinted towards Kenji. Meanwhile, Kenji was just wondering what the anacondas tastes like. And I wonder how big is the boss. Underscore. Please visit my Patreon to read 5 advanced chapters and if you want to support me. www.patreon.com/SlimeSage. 250 Power Stones 1 bonus chapter. 500 Power Stones 2 bonus chapters. 7 comments 0 vote. Pissed. Download the app for additional rewards. More events, more perks. Winning you more free perks. Download now. SlimeSage. Download app now. Announcement. Everyone, I just wanted to clear up to you guys that this Fanfic is not a multiverse Fanfic. So Kenji only stays in the solo leveling world. You must be asking why, right? Well, I've seen how this fanfic is a failure, so many haters and such, so I decided to not prolong this fanfic. Now that's done, I'm thinking of doing a Q&A, so ask some questions you like, and I'll try to answer them to the best of my abilities. By the way, help me reach at least 150 power stones this week and I'll post a bonus chapter. 16 comments, 0 vote. Ch. 32. As promised, here's a bonus chapter. Underscore 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 underscore. While Kenji was fighting with the anacondas, the situation in Korea was not good, especially after losing a bunch of high-quality hunters. One of them is S-rank hunter Sung Ll-Won, the father of the protagonist of this world. But unknown to everyone, Sung Ll-Won is actually alive and was exploring the dungeon he was trapped in. TCH, I didn't expect that Ant was too powerful, we're all directly annihilated without a fight. Thanks to my tough defense, I managed to survive and maybe live to tell the tale. TCH, I didn't expect that Ant was too powerful, we're all directly annihilated without a fight. Thanks to my tough defense, I managed to survive and maybe live to tell the tale. Sung Il-won chuckled to himself. Remembering that his wife and children will be lonely after he was gone, Il-won was determined to get out of here alive and get back to his kids. He then recalled that his wife suffered from a disease that appeared since the gates exists. Remembering this, he was even more determined to get out of here alive no matter what happens. Jin Woo, Jin Ah. Wait for me, I promise, I'll come back. With an indomitable will and huge determination in his mind, Sung Il-won continued exploring the dungeon without him knowing that he will soon meet someone who will save him. Back to Kenji. Kenji's body was covered with blood, but this blood was not his, instead, it was the anaconda's blood. He had just finished killing the last of them and was ready to look for the boss. Using his phenomenal vision, Kenji looked around and finally found a very huge anaconda, probably even taller than the Eiffel Tower, curled on a huge nest while eggs were resting below her. The boss seems to be a female, Kenji said to himself before sprinting towards the boss's location and arriving without breaking a sweat. Meanwhile, the boss hissed, trying to intimidate Kenji, which doesn't affect him. Kenji shakes his head at the futile attempt and decided to finish this as soon as possible. After shaking his head, Kenji raised his head and stared at the boss's eyes and was about to kill her when suddenly, the boss hissed violently and something seems to attack Kenji and he didn't manage to react. What? Kenji tried to speak when he suddenly felt that he couldn't speak, and when he tried to move his body, it seems like he was frozen like a statue. Fuck. How can't I move? Kenji cursed, and no matter what he do, he can't move even an inch. Meanwhile, Kenji could feel a shadow looking over him, and since he can't move his body, Kenji just assumes that the boss is about to eat him. Oh, shit. Kenji cursed again and then he was swallowed by the giant anaconda. Inside the boss, Kenji seems to realize something. Wait. She isn't an anaconda. I think I've heard of her somewhere before. While Kenji was lost in thoughts, he didn't notice that he was drowned in an acid that could melt even the toughest mineral in the world. But this is nothing to Kenji, who could probably survive a nuclear bomb, though he might come out scratched. While Kenji was lost in thoughts, outside the gate, the manager of Kenji seems to be walking back and forth while nervously sweating. How am I gonna tell him? The manager muttered nervously. As for the reason he was nervous, was because he just got the news that Kenji's girlfriend, Kanae, gone out of the country and was on her way to Korea. And just by thinking about the S-ranked gate that appeared on Jeju Island, Yuko, which is the name of the manager, could already guess what was going on inside Kanae's mind. She's definitely aiming at that S-ranked gate. Yuko yelled inside his mind. At the same time, Kanae had just gotten off the private plane and finally called out for a taxi for her. She did all this in secret since she doesn't want news having their attention on her, since for her, it's a hassle. Then, she went and gave a call to Korean Hunters Association. Good morning, this is Korean Hunters Association, how may I help you? On the other side of the phone, a lady answered her in a very fluent Korean accent. It was then that Kanae realized that she went to Korea without even knowing their language. Hello. Instead of Japanese or Korean, Kanae tries to speak English since it's the only language that she was familiar with except for Japanese. English. Yes, hello, how may I help you? The Korean lady was confused at first but professionality came over her and answered in a fluent English accent. May I speak to your chairman? Kanae said. Please hold on for a second. The lady said then takes out a book and seems to be trying to find something and when she finally found what she was looking for, she went back to the phone call. I'm sorry, the chairman is currently busy in a meeting, please call later. The lady said and was about to hang up when Kanae suddenly said. Wait. This is Tawada Kanae, an S rank in Japan, and I would really like to meet your chairman. Kanae decided to reveal her identity to make this easier. At first, she doesn't want to reveal herself yet since news about her might spread and she doesn't want that, especially on how fast news travel and no doubt, it'll reach her boyfriend in a minute. Then, I'll try and schedule you a meeting with him. The lady then goes and did her work. Kanae nodded and hangs up. She then felt a bit of guilt for not telling Kenji about what she was about to do. She just wanted to prove to him that she could stand side by side with him, she wanted to prove that she was also strong and will not be a burden to Kenji. Although Kenji didn't say anything about her being a burden, she felt that she was a burden so she has to do this. With extreme determination, she was ready to do whatever it takes for this. She's gonna prove to Kenji that she was worthy of him. Underscore 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 underscore. Please visit my Patreon to read 5 advanced chapters and if you want to support me. www.patreon.com/SlimeSage. 250 Power Stones 1 bonus chapter. 500 Power Stones 2 bonus chapters. 11 comments 0 vote. Ch. 33. That's it. It's a basilisk. According to what I've read, it can turn his enemies into stone through eye contact. Kenji seems to realize what kind of creature the boss is. Does that mean, I've turned into stone? How am I gonna get back now? Kenji grumbles in his mind. Unknown to him, he was fortunate that the boss was a low-level basilisk compared to the high ones, so within just a few hours, he should be able to move at least a finger. Another good thing was the time difference between an A rank and the real world outside. So a week inside will be a day outside. This is the first time I actually struggle. Since he was just drowning in acid, Kenji decided to pass time by thinking about everything he had ever done since he came from this world. Now that I think about it, I definitely should have spent some time basking in the sun. I was too short-sighted that there are actually beings stronger than me out there, like the vessels of the monarchs and rulers, not to mention, the monarchs and rulers themselves. From this point, Kenji started pointing out every mistake he did since he was reborn. Soon, 5 hours have passed, and Kenji has already a change of mind. From now on, he'll start training and giving himself time basking in the sun. Then, he also has to keep in mind about his weakness in magic and the red sun. As for the kryptonite, maybe that thing will not exist in this world, so Kenji can rest assured, although he still has to watch out for some rocks that have the same effects as kryptonite out there. We'll never know. Since 5 hours has passed, Kenji could already move his left arm and he could already feel his sense of touch coming back to him, so he could feel the slimy thing enveloping his whole body. But Kenji doesn't mind this, he endured more than this during World War II. He even tried to drink his own piss when he was stuck in a forest without food or drinks. Not only that, but he also ate raw flesh of snakes and chickens, and he even ate bugs. Kenji used his moving arm to slap himself. He doesn't want to remember every suffering he endured back then. Once I could move my head, I'll use my beams to kill this basilisk. Kenji said to himself. Once he's out here, he could finally get out of here. While Kenji was waiting for his body to move again, Kanae already arrived at Korean Hunters Association and currently waiting in the guest room while sipping on her tea. Soon, the door opens and the Go-Gunhee, the chairman of the Korean Hunters Association, walks inside. Gunhee was a muscular old man with gray hair, greenish-gray eyes, and numerous scars on his body. While he was wearing a 3-piece suit. Kanae stands up to greet him but was only met with a warm smile of his in a fluent Japanese accent, shocking Kanae. Please, no need to be formal. Anyway, my name is Go-Gunhee. I assume that you're Tawada Kanae, an S rank from Japan and also the lover of the national hunter Akano Kenji. Once having said that, Gunhee gestures for her to sit back on the couch, while he also did the same and sat. Kanae recovered from her shock and nodded at him seriously, and then she sat. Tawada-san, I know you don't like formal things, so let's get to the point of our meeting. I agree for you to participate in the Jeju Island S-ranked gate, but I have a request before you go. Gunhee immediately agreed with her, which shocked Kanae a bit, and knew that nothing is free in this world, and she was right when she heard his last sentence. Kanae was ready to burst out of here if the old man requests her something strange or perverted. Only Kenji has the privilege to access her body. What is it? Kanae muttered while coldly glaring at Gunhee as if saying, if you request something strange, I'll cut you into pieces. Making him gulp in fear. Not because she was strong but because of the man behind her. He's not confident he could win against that guy even though he is a vessel of a ruler. But deep inside, he knew that Kenji is definitely involved in monarchs and rulers. He already has suspicions that he might be a vessel of the dragon monarch, but he quickly erased that off, since if he is the vessel of him then he should be able to command Kamish instead of killing him, and also because his powers and abilities aren't related to dragons except for his overwhelming strength. Please. Don't look at me like that, I mean you no harm. My request was just before you go, I hope that you could convince Kenji to have a meeting with me. I tried to arrange a meeting with him but it seems like he was too busy since I haven't received any response from him. Gunhee said sheepishly while scratching the back of his head. More like too busy cuddling with me, Kanae chuckled in her mind after she heard what he said. Then she sighed in relief because she thought that this meeting might get bloody, but it was just her thinking too much. She then nodded at him, sure, I'll do that, but don't blame me if he refused. Gunhee nodded at her, of course. I just want him to be informed that I want to meet him. Kanae nodded at his words and after a few minutes of chat, they both said farewell to each other before Kanae went outside, missing the loving look of Gunhee. Take care of your mother for me, Kanae-chan. Gunhee smiled sadly before bowing his head while sitting on the sofa. Back to Kenji. Kenji could already feel his left leg and half of his body and face. Just a little bit more. Kenji mused to himself in his mind. I hope I could arrive there in time. Kenji was really excited at the thought of meeting another disaster like Kamish. During his fight with Kamish, he felt his blood boiling, that his enemy could fight with him without bursting into blood mist. Even though he was holding back, but it was just a little bit unlike when he fights others, he has to hold back a lot. Underscore 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 underscore. Please visit my Patreon to read 5 advanced chapters and if you want to support me. www.patreon.com SlimeSage. 250 Power Stones 1 bonus chapter. 500 Power Stones 2 bonus chapters. 10 comments 0 vote. Ch. 34. Time flies like a butterfly, another hour has passed, and Kenji could finally feel his body senses. Being able to move most of his body, Kenji patted the basilisk's flesh and muttered. It was fun while it lasted. His eyes then glowed in red and a familiar hot beam bursts out of his eye sockets, slicing through the basilisk's insides. Outside the stomach, the basilisk was just chilling on her own with her eggs warming up underneath her when suddenly, she felt pain inside her and it only increases until a pair of dark red lasers sliced through her body. Inside, Kenji floated in the air while his eyes were continuously burning the basilisk's body. Meanwhile, the basilisk was hissing in pain while using her everything to concentrate on healing her body. Kenji was surprised at how fast the basilisk healed her body, perhaps a little bit faster than Wolverine's. Deciding to not use his lasers, Kenji inhaled a lot of fresh air until his lungs buffed up before exhaling every air he inhaled. Phew. The basilisk's body was immediately frozen from the inside and out, leaving only the eggs underneath her. Once all the air inside his lung is almost depleted, Kenji stops and forms his finger in a flicking motion with the basilisk's body on its front. Letting go of his finger, the basilisk didn't even move an inch before she blew up into pieces. When the basilisk was gone, Kenji noticed that most of her eggs are destroyed, leaving only an egg that was still intact but still has a few cracks. Looking around, Kenji crouched and gently picked up the egg, and then Kenji used his X-ray to take a peek inside the egg and saw that the baby basilisk is still alive, curled up inside, and still sleeping. Kenji seems to fall into thinking for a bit before making a decision. A basilisk companion doesn't sound bad. Kenji smiled and nodded to himself. Today, he decided to surprise Kanae with his gift. Outside the gate, everyone seems to be preparing their equipment to harvest the mana crystals. To them this is a normal routine. And sure enough, the gate swirled and Kenji came out in his full glory, while holding an egg. Meanwhile, Kenji just went out and felt the sun basking him again. Soon, his assistant immediately went towards him in a hurry, confusing Kenji. Kenji-sama. Yuko called out to him with respect, but he was out of breath, so he stops and caught his breath first before continuing. Meanwhile, Kenji was patient enough to wait for him even though he was in a hurry. Kenji-sama, it's Kanae-sama, she went out of the country and was currently in Korea. Yuko told him after catching his breath, he doesn't even notice the egg he was carrying. Kenji frowns and seems to predict what she's thinking, before shaking his head. Kanae baka, Kenji mutters before looking at his assistant gratefully. Deliver this to my house, no questions. Kenji gave Yuko his egg. After that, he crouched down and jumped a few feet away from the ground. Boom. Due to his strength, everyone was shocked when Kenji suddenly flew up and some clouds of dust spread around due to the blast of winds. While the newbies were very annoyed, those who has been on the job for a year just chuckled at their reactions. While Kenji was on his way, Kanae was on a helicopter, and below her was Jeju Island. Looking down at the island, Kanae inhaled and exhaled before jumping out without a parachute. She doesn't need a parachute, she is an S-rank hunter for a reason. And jumping out of a chopper from this height isn't lethal to her. Boom. With her left knee on the ground while her right leg is bending, with her right hand on the ground while her left hand is bent behind her. No doubt, this is definitely a hero entrance. Standing up, she patted her knee and fist to remove the dirt before looking in front of her and seeing some destroyed buildings and some black ants as huge as a car. Unsheathing her katana, she immediately sliced the closest ant to her before rushing up to the others. What followed was a massacre, with blood trailing off to the huge mountain. To Kanae, this mission is simple, all she gotta do was to go inside and kill the queen and all of this will be over. Oh, how naive she was thinking that this'll be easy. What she doesn't know was that the Korean hunters weren't eradicated due to the ants' strength but because of their never-ending numbers, to the point that almost every hunter either became exhausted or ran out of mana. In front of Kanae, was a very dark cave where she saw the ants come out of. If her guess is correct then the queen should be inside there. Without hesitation, Kanae bravely entered the Ant Queen's nest. Back to Kenji. Currently, he was flying towards Jeju Island after searching on Google Maps. With his speed, arriving at Jeju Island will only take less than a minute. He doesn't even care about the consequences anymore, he'll just ask the chairman of the Korean Hunters Association to clean him later, but first, his priority is his girlfriend. As much as he wanted to be mad at her for making such a decision, he can't seem to do it. It's like what she just did makes him proud of her. He doesn't know why, but that's just what he feels like right now. Though he'll still lecture her about this. Soon, he have finally arrived at Jeju Island and before he could land, his phone rang. Ring ring. Answering the phone, Kenji asks, Kenji speaking, who is this? Kenji, it's me, your dad, I just got a call saying that you illegally crossed a country again. It turns out it was his dad, Chikashi, who just got the news about him. Kenji chuckled while scratching the back of his head and said, sorry dad, it was an emergency situation. I see. Then I'll cover you up. Anyway, now that you mention it, what's the emergency situation? Hearing his question, Kenji answers truthfully since there's no harm to it. I see, then you should definitely save her, then you'll be her knight in shining armor. She'll surely fall head over heels for you again, trust me on this, I did the same and your mother became crazy for me. Do you hear me, son? She was crazy for my love. Kenji seems weirded out by his father's rumblings and decided to end the call. Okay, I'll hang up the call now, I still got a lady to save. Yeah, sure. Anyway, after saving her, don't use a condom. This old man is ready to become a grandfather. Kenji immediately hangs up, not wanting to hear any more of his father's ramblings. After putting his phone away, Kenji cracked his neck and fingers before staring at the island below him. Underscore. Please visit my Patreon to read 5 advanced chapters and if you want to support me. www.patreon.com SlimeSage. 500 Power Stones 1 bonus chapter. 1000 Power Stones 2 bonus chapters. 4 comments 0 vote. Ch. 35. Hey guys, SlimeSage here. I just wanna ask, if you guys know some sites where I can watch all the Marvel movies, since I'm thinking if an MCU fanfic for my next fanfic. Underscore 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 underscore. At the same time Kenji arrived at Jeju Island, Kanae was currently breathing heavily while clutching her bleeding arm. *T. How many of them are there? I can't keep up with them. Kanae was cursing in her mind while looking around and running away. Behind was a swarm of big ants that seems to be endless. Kanae sensed an ant hiding in a corner where she was going, and when she reached the corner, she then dodged the sneaking ant's surprise attack and swing her katana in a swift motion in front of her. Slash. Skick. With her years of training in katana and sparring with Kenji almost every day, she's much more stronger than herself in the canon. With her speed and skills, she can be a very deadly opponent to everyone. This is why killing these ants is easy for her, but the problem is the numbers. This is 1 versus thousands or perhaps millions. Looking behind her while running, she saw that the ants haven't stopped chasing her. Give me a break. Kanae complained to herself while slicing another ant that tries to sneak up on her. Soon, many others followed, making Kanae very exhausted. Before she knew it, she was already sitting down inside a dark cave she managed to hide in. Only now did she regret coming here all by herself, and not only that, she didn't even tell Kenji about her trip here. She wished that she could at least say goodbye to her mother, Kenji, and his parents. Kanae could already feel the blood gushing out of her arm and stomach. While Kanae was contemplating about her life inside a dungeon, Sung Il-won was on the verge of death due to starvation and dehydration. He then takes a photo out of his pocket and it reveals to be his wife and children, Sung Jinwoo and Sung Jiha. Drops of water fall on the photo and it reveals Sung Il-won crying while caressing the photo, especially his wife. A few seconds later, he carefully placed the photo back in his pocket and just randomly stared at the walls of the dungeon. Unknown to him, a bunch of angelic humanoid beings were watching him all the time. He should be suitable to eliminate both of their vessels. One of them said to the one in the front. One of them nodded and said, "You're right, I'll make him my vessel." What are your thoughts, brightest fragment of brilliant light? The brightest fragment of brilliant light nodded his head in confirmation. Yes. You should proceed. Hearing what he said, the other rulers also nodded their heads when one of them noticed something and decided to tell the other rulers about it. How about her? One of the rulers pointed out and they saw a girl with black hair and purple lipstick, who seems to be exhausted and clutching her bleeding arm and stomach. Maybe we should also make her a vessel so she could help in eliminating the monarch's vessels. After all, Il-won can't kill both of them all alone, he's gonna need some help. One of the rulers suggested, which sparked some interest from the other rulers. That's a great idea, shining fragment of brilliant light. Even the brightest fragment of brilliant light was also interested, since killing two monarchs' vessels is impossible, so another vessel might be a good idea. I'll make her my vessel. The brightest fragment of brilliant light spoke out his thoughts, which were agreed by the others. Then we should proceed, I'll go and meet the girl. The brightest fragment of brilliant light said and stands up, followed by the others, and then they all flashed away in light before they disappeared. Back to Il-won. He could already feel death looming over him, his eyelids are close to being shut when suddenly, a bright light blinded him, while at the same time, waking him up a bit. When he opens his eyes, he was met with a few humanoid angelic beings, which are currently the rulers. Am I dreaming? Il-won muttered while wiping his eyes to see if what he is seeing is real. You are not dreaming, mortal. We are the rulers, and we have a proposal for you. The shining fragment of brilliant light spoke out. Our rulers. Il-won would really like to slap himself to see if he's dreaming. The shining fragment of brilliant light and the others patiently waited. Seeing that they were quiet, Il-won was embarrassed and said, what proposal? Would you like to see your family again? The brightest fragment of brilliant light said. Il-won's eyes widened in shock and hurriedly said, really? How can I see them again? He then tried to crawl towards the shining fragment of brilliant light. The shining fragment of brilliant light didn't mind this and said, we have a proposal for you, which will make you see your family again. Il-won seems to teared up and begged, please, I'll do anything to see them again. Then, we have a mission for you. While the shining fragment of brilliant light was speaking with Sung Il-won, Kanae also met with the brightest fragment of brilliant light, who was also proposing the same to her. And because of that, the monarchs went into hiding and some of them are currently using a mortal's body to interfere with the mortal world. The brightest fragment of brilliant light first explained to her the situation. Kanae was just listening and sometimes, glancing at the rulers with caution. Then, what's the purpose of letting me know this? Kanae confusedly asked. I have a proposal for you. Do you want to get strong? When Kanae heard what he said, she was a bit tempted to accept but decided to hear the proposal first, who knows what kind of proposal he's proposing. Seeing that Kanae was interested, the brightest fragment of brilliant light decided to strike the iron while it's hot. I could make you my vessel, which in turn gives you strength that is out of your system, and in return, all you have to do is to eliminate the Shadow Monarch and the Star Monarch. We sense them here in your world but we can't pinpoint their exact location. So, Tawada Kanae, do you agree? Kanae seems to be contemplating about the decision she's gonna make. This is a chance for her, a chance to stand side by side with Kenji. With a determined look replacing her face, she raised her head and nodded in agreement. I agree. Underscore 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 underscore. Please visit my Patreon to read 5 advanced chapters, and if you want to support me. www.patreon.com SlimeSage. 250 Power Stones 1 bonus chapter. 500 Power Stones 2 bonus chapters. 12 comments 0 vote. Ch. 36. Seeing that she finally agreed, the brightest fragment of brilliant light nodded at her while at the same time, receiving news from the shining fragment of brilliant light that Sung Il-wan agreed to the proposal and has become his vessel. Turning his head towards Kanae, I'm afraid this is as far as we could talk, but before I go, I will remind you that you'll have an additional ally in a decade. Farewell, mortal. Having said that, the brightest fragment of brilliant light disappeared in a flash of light. Meanwhile, Kanae could feel her growing strength, especially, she has a feeling that she could extend her reach and move things with her mind. Deciding to try it, she extended her hand forward, and the boulder that is resting was lifted upward, while Kanae tried to move it around and it did. A few seconds later, she felt a bit exhausted since not only is she exhausted from the battles earlier but she directly used a skill that she just received without training in it. Yes, I'll train late. Kanae didn't manage to finish her sentence when the wall behind her was suddenly blasted away and a frowning Kenji walked inside and a sigh of relief came out of his mouth at seeing Kanae alive. Seeing Kenji, Kanae also sighs in relief, and finally, she felt embarrassed since she just went into an S-rank dungeon without informing her boyfriend. I'm sorry, When she was about to apologize, Kenji suddenly embraced her and lifted her. We'll talk about this later, but first, let's take you to a healer. Kenji said, and before she knew it, they both blasted out of the ceiling, and while up in the air, Kanae could see the whole island, with its full beauty if it wasn't for the ants swarming it. Earlier, Kenji didn't finish the ants since his priority is Kanae since he saw that she was injured when he used his X-ray to find her. Soon, they finally reached their home and at the front door is a worried Shina and Hana while Chikashi was sagely nodding his head before giving Kenji a salute. Kenji decided to not visit the hospital for hunters instead, he went for his father since he is a healer, a much more potent one. After landing, he first went inside the mansion and gently laid Kanae on the couch, and finally, let his father do his job. Chikashi also went inside, while holding a glowing green grimoire and soon, Kanae was enveloped in a green light before it wears off, revealing Kanae without a scratch. Kenji thanked his father, while Shina immediately went to Kanae's side and reprimanded her. Meanwhile, Kanae just kept quiet since she felt that she deserved this since going inside a very dangerous dungeon alone that even S-rank hunters can't handle without allies is nothing but a death wish. It was then that Kanae finally realized the dumb action that could cause her life, and probably even make her close ones sad and Kenji might become depressed. While at the same time, she felt no regret coming alone since not only did she learn her lesson, but also because she received a power that is beyond her imagination. If she's gonna compare her strength from before and after, then she's 10 times more stronger than her past self. If her speed before could outrun a jet, then her speed now could outrun a speeding bullet. While her strength also increased, but if compared to Hana, then she falls quite a bit. After Shina was done reprimanding her, it was Hana's time to lecture her. After another 5 minutes of an earful, Hana was finally done, but it was then she noticed a familiar power inside her. When she squinted her eyes to take a close look, she was shocked by what she found and decided to talk with her husband about this. After Hana, it was finally Kenji's time. Kanae just looked at Kenji and saw Kenji gesturing for her to come with him back to their home. After saying their goodbyes, and sagely advice from Chikashi to Kenji, Kenji flew away with Kanae on his back. On their way back home, they both just kept quiet, making Kanae nervous. In an instant, they finally arrived back home. After gently landing, Kenji brought Kanae to their bedroom and gently laid her down on the bed. Kanae was both curious and afraid of what was happening. Curious, because she was curious on why Kenji had to bring her to their bedroom, while she was afraid that Kenji might be mad at her. While she was deep thinking, Kenji unknowingly hugged her from behind, shocking her while at the same time, making her blush furiously. No matter how many times they cuddle or hug, Kanae was still embarrassed by this. Kenji, who was hugging her from behind, gently placed his face to her nape, taking a sniff of her scent. When Kanae noticed what he was doing, it was already too late. Then suddenly, a moan came out of her mouth. HNN. Kanae widened her eyes before using her hands to close her mouth while breathing heavily. She could also hear Kenji chuckling from her nape. Kanae pouted and said, "Aren't you supposed to be mad at me?" Hearing what she said, Kenji just shook his head and said, "I'm not mad, I'm just a bit disappointed that you didn't even inform me about what you just did. It's not like I'm gonna stop you." Kanae just bowed her head in sadness. She didn't mean it to happen like this. When she first heard about the dungeon, she was determined to clear it and make her boyfriend proud. But instead, not only she was on the verge of death, but she also makes her boyfriend disappointed in her. "I'm sorry, When she was apologizing, Kenji's next word stops her. "But I'm proud of you. If other hunters were in your situation, they'd lose hope and just left themselves there to rot, but you didn't. Instead, you overcome your fear and faced the challenges head on." Kenji then caressed her hair while tears were falling from her eyes. She was happy that her boyfriend was also proud of her. All she ever wanted was to be equal to Kenji. Now with her strength, she could probably do it. "Not only that, but I could sense that you also get stronger. I don't know what happened there nor I'm gonna pry, but at least promise me that you'll never do this again." Kenji was shocked when he sensed Kanae's strength. Perhaps when they spar again, she could provide him a challenge. Kanae nodded her head when she heard his words. She expected that Kenji will sooner notice her increased strength. Then a thought struck her. Maybe she could tell Kenji about her encounter with the rulers earlier. After all, the brightest fragment of brilliant light didn't say anything about not telling someone about her encounter. Underscore 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 underscore. There will be lemon in ch. 38 and 39. Please visit my Patreon to read 5 advanced chapters, and if you want to support me, www.patreon.com/SlimeSage. 500 Power Stones 1 bonus chapter. 1000 Power Stones 2 bonus chapters. 4 comments 0 vote. ch. 37. Hesitating on whether she should tell him or not, it was then that she remembers that time when she got a tattoo. She didn't tell him about her decision, and then there's earlier when she once again didn't tell him that she was going in an S-rank dungeon. And now she's about to repeat the same mistake, so this time, she decided to tell him the truth about earlier. "Ken-chan. I have to tell you something, will you listen?" Kanae said while they were cuddling on the bed. Kenji just nodded at her and said, "Sure, what is it?" Kenji asks. Kanae then told him about what happened earlier. About his meeting with the rulers, about the proposal in exchange for being a vessel, and finally, her mission of eliminating the Shadow and Star Monarch. Kenji just kept quiet and listened to her story. After telling him about what happened earlier, Kanae noticed Kenji's calm expression and pouted. "You don't believe me, do you?" Kenji chuckled and was about to tell her that he believes her when Kanae suddenly stands up and told him, "If you don't believe me, I'll show you." After that, Kanae brought her hand forward and Kenji felt someone lifting him without physical touch. Kenji didn't resist and slowly floated out of the bed while Kanae was looking at him like a puppy waiting for his praise. Kenji mentally chuckled at her cuteness, then resisted her control and slowly floated towards her before patting her head. "This is a nice power, Kanae-chan." Kenji purely smiled at her while Kanae was blushing at being patted by him. "Of course, I believe you. After all, I already knew about the rulers and monarchs." When Kenji said that, Kanae stopped blushing and deadpanned and stared at Kenji as if saying, "Really? And you didn't tell me?" Kenji felt like laughing at seeing her reaction while Kanae could see Kenji holding his laugh, so she pouted again and punched his broad chest. "Wait. Since you know it already, when did you learn it? And where? Kanae seems to realized something and asked. Well, it was during Kamisha's rampage last year. And it was father who told me about it. Huh. It was Chikashi-san. Does your mother also know about it? Kenji nodded at her words, while Kanae felt left out since she was the last one to know about monarchs and rulers. Kenji, seeing that Kanae was down, patted her head and said, don't be so down, how about I cook you something, you must be hungry right? Kanae's depression immediately faded away and nodded at his words. Kenji's cooking is top-notch, unknown to her, it was only good for her because the one who cooks is her beloved. In truth, his cooking is just above average since he just started learning cooking the day they became a couple. Kenji chuckled at her reaction and went down to the kitchen to cook. Soon enough, Kanae managed to a whiff of the food that Kenji was making, so she went down the stairs and saw Kenji holding 2 steaming bowls with his bare hands. Kanae was curious about what it is, although she could already guess what. Kenji already heard her going down, so he looked at her and said, it's ramen. That just confirmed her guess, and immediately sat on the chair of the dining table. While Kenji placed both of the ramens on the table and also sat. After they were both sitting, they clapped their hands and said, Itadakimasu. Slurp. Both of them slurped their noodles before stopping and sighing in pleasure. Ha. Both of them turned their head at each other before laughing. Today is a very lovely day. Kenji thought to himself. While Kanae is slurping, she seems to remember something, so she finished slurping and said. Now that I remember, Go Gun-hee, the chairman of the Korean Hunters Association told me that he wants to have a meeting with you, Kanae said. Kenji nodded at her and decided to check his emails later. Soon, they both finished eating and it was time for a cuddle while watching movies. This is already their daily life, and most of it is cuddling. So settling on the sofa, they both just laid there and watched some Harry Potter rip-off, called Larry Cutter. It was also then that Kenji remembered that he could publish some famous movies back from his world to this world. Since there are no Marvel Studios here, then Kenji could add that to his list. He'll cross the Harry Potter out since there's also a movie that is similar to Harry Potter which they are watching right now. Kenji doesn't want Harry Potter to be called a copycat. Then there are also some famous series, like Stranger Things, but he didn't manage to watch season 4 since he died in 2020. With another goal on his mind, he finally focused on watching the movie till the end. Wow, I didn't think Larry could speak to snakes. After watching the movie, Kanae couldn't help but remark. Well, it's kinda lame, Kenji said. Kanae was confused so she asks, what do you mean? I mean, talking to snakes is lame. Don't ask me why. Kenji chuckled while Kanae pouted when she didn't get her answer. Anyway, aren't you supposed to train at this time? Kenji asks. Kanae seems to realize something and turned to look at the clock, and it was right, she was late an hour in her martial arts school. Although they could get a private teacher, Kanae insists on learning with others since she wanted to observe her rate in learning compared to others. Kenji doesn't mind it and allowed her to do what she wants. After that, they both separated and Kenji went to his office and turns on his laptop. Then he went to his emails and saw some of Gun-hee's emails to him. Most of them are wanting to arrange a meeting with him. So without hesitation, he dialed the number and called Gun-hee. Underscore 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 underscore. Please visit my Patreon to read 5 advanced chapters and if you want to support me. www.patreon.com/SlimeSage